Hi and welcome everybody. I'm so glad that you're here today. And if you are here with me live, please say hi in the comments and I will say hi back. If you have any questions, any comments, any feedback, please leave it in the comments. I love to hear from you guys and what you have to say. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Jen Wyatt and I am your business and productivity coach, and I'm here to help you take daily action so that you can reach your highest potential. So, today we're going to talk about how are you going to get there. So, one of the things, one of my favorite quotes, it struck me a lot when I first started on this journey. I'm a huge Alice in Wonderland fan. In fact, my youngest son was a baby. He used to call her Alice in Wonderland, not Alice in Wonderland, because I would read all the book. I'll read all the time or watch the movies. But one of the things that if you read the book, the Cheshire Cat says to Alice is he's basically wanting to know where she's going to go. He's an antagonist, so he's kind of poking at her. And she was like, I don't know which way to go. And he said, well, where are you going? And she said, I don't know where I'm going. And he said, then any road will take you there. And that has always struck in my mind because this concept of if we don't know where we're going, then it doesn't really matter how we get there leaves a lot to circumstance, it leaves a lot to chance, it leaves a lot to just sort of this kind of attitude of, well, if it happens, it happens. And granted, there's some things in life that will just happen and it just is. But I believe that when it comes to setting a path to meeting your goals, to walking towards that thing that you're called to do, that you want to do, that you desire to do, that if you don't create a path for that, if you don't set the steps, then you're never going to get there. And I know a lot of people that have big dreams and big aspirations and things that they want to do, but yet they spend a lot of time just thinking about it instead of just doing it. So I've been kind of on a rampage lately. If you've noticed from my posts and from just a couple of my lives, I really have gotten got like a burr in my saddle, if I can be a little bit country there. I used to ride horses, so I know how miserable it is to have a burr in your saddle. But the thing of it is that I just am so passionate and so like on fire to help people meet their goals and to figure out what steps they need to take. Because another quote, I'm going to share this later this week on social media, is it's really about how it's time to put down our megaphones and pick up our shovels, meaning it's time to stop talking about what we want to do and actually start doing it. We sound like that Nike ad, just do it. But that's really, really, just do the thing. But I also know that it can be hard. And there's things that blocks and mental blocks and like physical actual blocks and situations in our life that sometimes can hold us back from meeting those goals. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because we're really going to dig into and talk about how you're going to get there. So, like I've been talking about goals, it can also feel like goal completion is this magical unicorn that you know that it's out there and you can see it sometimes, but you don't really know for sure that completing that goal will actually really happen. And there's a lot of reasons why we don't finish things. I kind of alluded to them a little bit ago, but really, for me in my life, I have stopped doing things because of circumstances. I stopped believing in myself. I stopped believing in the goal. I really had some thinking around, well, I just can't do this, or someone else can do it better than me, so why should I bother? Or really, sometimes I just don't feel like it. And I've been actually studying a lot lately, and in the next couple of weeks, I'll be sharing more and more about the things that I'm studying. But one of the things that I'm studying is about our brain and how our brain really accepts change or doesn't accept change. And it's fascinating to me because our brains are hardwired to resist change. Part of our brain is. And then there's another part of our brain that really wants a challenge. So if you've ever felt conflicted, like confused, like, oh my gosh, I want to do this, but I can't do this. And there's like this feeling that you get, and you feel kind of out of sorts or at war with yourself, it's really because of the two sides of your brain are really fighting against each other. And I found that interesting, but more on that later. That's not why we're here to talk. I could talk about this stuff all day long. But I mean, do any of these things resonate with you? Just back to the reasons why we don't finish things. Um, I'm sure that you can leave in the comments different ways that you haven't finished things. I mean, for me, sometimes it's circumstantial. Something in my life happens and derails me. It's hard for me to meet my running goals because I run outside in Florida because it rains a lot in the summer. So I have to be flexible about when I run. And so sometimes being flexible can be challenging because, again, it's that whole change thing, right? When you want to get into good habits and good patterns, it's, you want to be more structured and less flexible sometimes. And so you can kind of, there's that where that war can come in as well. So let's see what we can do about pushing through those barriers and those things that hold us back from completing our goals. Now, number one is to set high standards. And I actually have a bit of technology now. I can put some stuff up here. There we go. Set high standards. And what does that mean in regards to goal setting? And it's setting standards that scare you. And that can seem a little bit like, why would I want to set something that, why would I want to be scared about my goals or about how I'm doing stuff? But what I really mean by that is to set standards in your life that make it impossible, like tie it so deeply to your why, and to really connect to why you want to get that goal done and why you want to achieve this. Or if you're trying to grow your business or get a promotion or whatever your goal is, run that marathon or write that book or whatever your goal is, the standards that scare you, those high standards, should be things in your life like tied to your why. So when you get out of bed, you're thinking about, okay, I get to do this today and I get to achieve this goal. And I may have to be flexible about when I get that goal, but it's putting a little pressure on yourself, but it's really taking your very best and doing your very best with your very best, which is a lot of very best in there. But let me simplify this a little bit. Is we all have something that we're burning to do. That's where our goals and our desires come from. Whether it's running a marathon, like I've talked about before, because it's one of my goals, or having a clean house all the time, or being consistent in your business, or doing a Facebook Live, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be this catastrophically huge goal, but it's not about competing with someone else. It's not about saying, oh, they're doing it so much better, and so I need to be better with them. We talked a little bit about that last week, about there's always going to be somebody who is better than you and not as good as you, and that's okay because you're you and be in the middle. So it's tied to that. But it's taking your very best work and your best energy, your best effort, and tying that to this goal, and it will help you achieve it. That's what a high standard is. It's taking your best and doing your very best with it. And that will help you walk that out and help you feel tied to that really well, and really a lot more. I mean, there's sometimes my days are long and I'm like, I want to show up on Facebook and I want to have energy and I want to be able to bring my very best to my audience. And sometimes, it's my very best in the moment, but not my very best of all times. And that's okay because I still showed up. I put intention there and I'm doing my very best in that moment. That's what I'm talking about. And know that each time you strive and do your best, it gets easier to do your best, and your best gets better and better. You probably win a prize for counting how many times I said best in there, but it really is something important because high standards are taking your very best and doing your very best with that. It's not about competition. It's not about all or nothing. It's just taking your very best and doing your best with it. The next thing is to take the long view. And what do I mean by that? Now, taking the long view is developing an attitude of stick-with-itness. This is creating consistency. This is spending your time on the most important things and letting go of what's not serving you. I talk a lot about that as well. But it's important that when you take the long view, you're looking at the long-term things and you're looking at how can I show up for this consistently? How can I meet this goal daily? It's not that I'm going to run a marathon every single day. I'm going to do the steps that I can take today to train for that marathon that's coming up, right? So that's what the long view looks like. This is where our planning comes in. This is where creating really good habits and letting go of what doesn't serve us and taking the time to prioritize and being diligent with what you have and then building on that. It's not walking in perfectionism. It's not this, short-term, I'm in a bubble and so I'm going to work on this right now or else. It's looking at what does my goal look like in the long view? How am I going to get there? What steps do I need to take? Again, it's all part of that map. If you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there. This taking the long view is taking the time to plan out those steps and spending your time on that, considering that important. That is setting your high standards. So deciding that that is important and that you're going to carve out this time and you're going to actually make that commitment and complete that goal, to work on that goal and to be diligent and faithful to what you've set yourself out to do, that high standard. And the next one I already kind of said too, but it's commit to completion. Now, this is where I actually released a post to either today or it's coming up this week, that I think it was Monday, that you don't have to be first, but it's important to finish. If you aren't going to finish something, then it's better that you don't start it at all. And that sounds really harsh. I am totally aware of that. I actually addressed a group of people last week and I was trying to be motivational and ended up talking about, the whole put down your megaphone and pick up your shovel, and got really excited about this thing that it's so important. That goals are great. And as we come to the end of the year and there's a lot of talk and a lot of, let's do New Year's resolutions, and they're great to get started, but without that long view and looking at that plan and connecting it to your why and setting your high standards for it, then it's really, really hard to commit to completion because it's not tied to anything. You have nothing at stake. It's not really that important. I mean, for years before I started this journey on being better and productive and better with my time management and being productive, it was really easy for me to write the same goal. Every year I would write this, I'll do this, and then, oh, okay, I'll do this, or I'll run a marathon this year, or I'll start riding horses, or, I could do all these things, right? But it just ended up staying on the paper. I didn't ever connect it to any of the things that I've talked about. And so that's where it's important too, to commit to completion, that even if it takes you 3 weeks, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, commit to that and do those daily steps. Walk out your plan, walk down that road that you've created for yourself, and do that thing. Even if it's spending 5 minutes a day, commit to that, and you'll be 5 minutes today closer to that goal. You'll be 10 minutes. And I've talked about this before, but it's so passionate for me that it doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation. You don't have to spend 3 hours a day doing or working towards your goal. It can be a very small amount, but if you commit to that, if you set your standards and you say, this is what I'm going to do, then it'll be easier to do it because you feel tied to it. You feel committed. You feel like this is something that I'm going to do. And again, I'm going to repeat this, and if it sounds harsh, I'm sorry, but it really is the reality that if you're not going to finish something, then don't waste your time. You're wasting your time by starting it. So if you're going to do something, make it meaningful and commit to that. And then you'll have such a greater chance at completing that, because one of the stats I share often is that only 8% of people who set out goals actually achieve them. 8%. I want to be a part of that 8%. I want to actually make that percentage grow and grow. I'm super passionate about that because it is something that we all have something important to say, and we all have something to share. And whether that comes out with, being the very best cook in your household and teaching your children to cook, or being the very best student if you're in school, or being the best version of you, again, not competition, we're not competing with anybody, but being your best and doing your best at it, right? So just to wrap it up, these are the 3 things I talked about on how are you going to get there. And these are the steps to take. Is number 1, set standards that scare you. That means to have that high standard, to really look at your life and say, okay, this is important to me. This is why. This is my why I'm doing this. And this is why it's important to me. And set that bar high and aim for that bar. And if you don't hit it 100% of the time, it's okay. But keep aiming for that high bar and that high standard. Because if we're scared, a little bit scared, it means it's important to us because we think that we might not make it or we might fail. And failing is okay. I've talked about that before. But if we're not feeling a little bit of fear, we have nothing at stake. So it's not going to mean a whole lot to us. So set standards that scare you. The second thing is taking the long view. That is developing an attitude and a habit of stick-with-itness. That's being consistent. That is planning. That is looking at priorities and saying no to things that aren't serving you. That's making sure that you have room in your plate and in your schedule for that thing. That's taking the long view. And then commit to completion is, if you're going to do the thing, then do the thing. And it might take you a long time to do that thing, but that's okay. Commit to doing it every day or every week or whatever time you have in your schedule, but commit to that and commit to completing it. Commit to completing that step, because that step will lead to the next step that you complete. And when you complete that step, then you keep completing. So you have a habit of completion, which will ultimately end up in completing that goal. So thank you so much for your time. I am going to sign off. I just want to remind you that if you haven't seen, I have a new Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group, and it's called the Productive Mama Forum. I'm just getting it started this week. We're getting to know each other. I've got a few people in there now, but I will drop the link to sign up for that in the comments if you're not already part of that. And it's just a great place. Again, it's been a little bit quiet this last week because I'm really promoting and getting people into the group, but it'll be the place to share our mommy moments and our things that help us be more productive, because I could talk about productivity all day long. I think I've proven that with a lot of my Facebook Lives, because I'm so passionate about productivity and goal setting and managing our time well and being a good leader and being a good steward of our time. So I can talk about that all day long. But I also know that there's some fantastic productive mamas, and you might even be listening right now, that have something to share too. And I want to have that community where we can be open and honest and say, I've had a bad day, or how do I pack my lunches more effectively for my kids, or whatever. We all have the many hats and the multiple things that we do, and we could talk about all those things there. And that's the type of forum that I'm creating. And so I hope that you join me there. I'll be doing some extra special lives there, some Saturdays kind of hangouts and meet and greet, and some sharing, and lots of good stuff coming your way. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm so glad that you joined me here today, and hope you have a great and productive day. Bye.